watch it. I tell you what, do nothing but love them, brother, and that's how they treat you. All right. Exodus chapter number 21. We didn't get very far in this chapter last time. So we're just going to start at the beginning of the chapter because God puts this in here. And I think as I've looked at it and as I've listened to what some others have said about some of these things, and this is the conclusion that I have come to. Well, there's a few. I think that as you look at this, I wrote in this the last time, consequences for sinful man's acts. God knows our heart. God knows man. He created them and watched them fall by choice. And so God knows man's heart more than man does. I don't know personally what great lengths I would go to get out of the will of God, to do whatever I wanted to do. But I can tell you this, it's in me. It's in me to do it. But also, there's a war going on because the Holy Spirit is leading and guiding me into all truth. But the flesh and the spirit are constantly at battle. But I'm thankful for this chapter. You would look at this chapter and you would think, why really is this put in here? Why the necessity for all these things? And we know from a couple chapters ago that Jethro had told Moses, "Hey, Moses, you're taking on a big burden." Told Moses, "Hey, Moses, you're taking on a big burden. Look, from an outsider's point of view, this is going to end your life very quickly. You're not going to last doing it this way. Because if we're not careful in life, anybody ever said, never mind, I'll do it myself, that way I know it's done right? Yeah, and listen, we may not always voice that, but there are times when we think that. And you know what? If we continue to take that behavior and continue to cultivate that in ourselves, we will literally work ourselves to death. And I've seen people do it. I myself have been there, and other people have told me, hey, you need to let some other people do this. And I think that's a part of ministry as well. Not everything is on one certain person. You look at churches and there'll be 4 deacons and one of them will do all the work. That's not right. You see churches that have their pastor and the pastor does all the work, and that's not right. And I'm thank God that we have a balance here, that people are not afraid to jump in and get their hands dirty or whatever the case may be. I appreciate everybody here, but there's something that God is wanting for people to understand. And I also think that in this chapter, and really the next 2 chapters, as you look at this one, this is another thing that really shines to me is God cares about people. And here's the thing, God cares about all people. The adults, children, unborn, man, woman. I mean, it doesn't matter. You're going to find in this chapter that God is pro-life. God's always been pro-life. Children are a treasure that the Lord looks at and doesn't want anyone to hurt them. Amen. He wants them to take care of them. So look at verse number 1. It says, now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. So the children of Israel, God and Moses are having a powwow, talking back and forth. God has already spoke to the people of Israel and spoke out of that cloud. And then Moses had ascended up the mount and went into the crowd. Does it say? I can't remember. I'm not going to look, but does it say that he went into the cloud? I think he did, I'm sure. Either way, it doesn't matter. Now these are the judgments. This is God talking with Moses, which thou shalt set before them. And I would say that Moses is probably like, wow, what a relief. God's given me consequences for sinful man's actions. And verse number 2, if thou buy an Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. Now, what we didn't talk about last time with this right here is something very interesting. But this is a picture of God, His love, and God's literal labor. Here's the thing: there was no bankruptcy court in this day. We look at it now, and we have to take, especially when you look at the Old Testament. And I'm not saying that you don't have to do this with the New, but more so with the Old Testament, you have to look at it and you have to say, okay. Like, we look at that and we think, man, why don't they just wipe the debt clear? Why don't they just pay $1,000 to some lawyer and he just, gets it wrote off and no big deal? That's not how it worked. And literally, that's not how it works with God. God wants you to pay your debts. And look, I'm not sitting here saying that you can't file bankruptcy. I'm not saying that at all. But God wants you. I know that there's certain instances that happen, and people have to. I completely understand that. And listen, I thank God that we have that capability if something is to befall somebody. But if you can pay, right? And so it says there in verse number 2, if thou buy an Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. So he works 6 years, in the 7th he leaves. If he came in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he were married, then his wife shall go out with him. Here's what this doesn't tell us within the first 6 verses. It doesn't tell us what Deuteronomy chapter 15 talks about, that at the end of the 6 years and the 7th comes, here's the thing, if he works 6 years and the 7th is to let him go, by law, even if the debt, the amount of work that this man or woman has done to pay this debt off, if it didn't correctly get nullified in that 6 years, it don't matter. They're free to go. And not only are they free to go, but go to Deuteronomy chapter number 15. And look at this. Listen, if this isn't God's handwriting all over it, I don't know. This is a picture, slavery, slave to sin. A redeemer, somebody that would pay your debt for you, okay? And then, guess what? Their grace is extended onto you when you go back out after your freedom. Look at Deuteronomy chapter number 15. Look at verse number 12. And if thy brother, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee, and serve thee 6 years, then in the 7th year thou shalt let him go free from thee. Well, we just read that in Exodus. And when thou sendest him out free from thee, thou shalt not let him go away empty. So you can't withhold. You have to, watch this, verse 14, thou shalt furnish him liberally. Liberally. We don't like that word liberal, but liberally means literally just, give him in excess, liberally, out of thy flock, out of thy floor, out of thy winepress, of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee thou shalt give unto him. So, what is God saying? God's saying, when that servant is free to go by the law that I've commanded, when he is free to go, you give him grace. He don't deserve this stuff. What if the debt's not been fulfilled correctly? Right? What if he still owes $1,500? Doesn't matter. God has blessed you, now you bless him. Man, that's Jesus. Right? I mean, Jesus came and paid our sin debt. It is finished, paid in full. And now, every perfect gift is from the Father of lights. I mean, does he not give us stuff every day? Even if he just give us breath, I think that's enough. Now, listen, I'm just going to be honest with you. I would like to have a little bit more than that, and I know that you would too, right? Well, not just breath, brother. I'd like to be able to get up and walk, right? But listen, we don't want these aches and pains. I'm just being honest with you. We don't want these aches and pains. We don't want to deal with stuff like this. We want to be 85 years old and feel like we're 20, right? We do. I mean, and our brain still wants to operate in that fashion, like, I can do that. I literally, it was probably, let's say 12 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, my wife, her grandpa was like 68, 70, and he literally tied a small chainsaw to his belt, climbed like 8 trees, and topped every one of them. I'm like, what in the world is he doing? It's to pay somebody to have this done. What happens if you fall out? He just, like a kid. We're talking about an almost 70-year-old man just monkeying around. I mean, with the chainsaw tied to his belt by a rope. Need the chainsaw, grab the rope, pull it up to you, on to the next one. Kick the clutch out, on to the next one. It's like, this is insanity. Listen, I'm 40 and I don't want to climb trees, right? But as we look at verse number 15, God's not done yet. In Deuteronomy chapter 15. Look at verse 15. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondman in the land of Egypt, and the Lord thy God redeemed thee. Therefore I command thee this thing today. So why in Exodus chapter 21, why would God start off with Moses, if somebody buys a slave? Have you ever met the person that was bullied in school, and then whenever they moved schools and you kept in touch with them, they were bullying other people? You ever heard the saying, I'll never be like my dad? And then they grow up and they're just like their dad. Because a lot of times, if we're not very careful, we got to make sure that we take a look in the mirror and make sure that we're not like people that have treated us badly in the past. Because they just come out of slavery. 400 years of slavery, and they're now just coming out of it. And God's having to remind them, hey, first and foremost, don't treat people that are servants to you like you've been treated in the past, because it's not right. It's not right. And can I just go on the record? I've heard the thoughts and the conspiracies and everything else that happened so many years ago in America. American slavery was not biblical. It's not biblical. It's not. Some churches have tried to even say that they've tried to take the Bible and twist it to make it well, it's okay. That was all right. That is not okay. It is not okay. It is not okay to buy somebody, I don't care what color their skin is, buy somebody and treat them like an animal. That's not okay, because they're a person, right? And I would even say that to managers and to business owners, don't treat your people like dogs, because they're not. And he says there in verse number 4, if his master back in Exodus chapter 21 now, if his master, verse 4, if his master have given him a wife, and she have borne him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her master's, and he shall go out by himself. And if the servant shall plainly say, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go out from me. Now, so we talked about this last time. What this is not saying is that God's okay with divorce. We looked at it last time and we said, hey, the servant didn't have to take her as his wife. They had to have children together. So what's being taught here? I mean, literally, the guy is indebted to just his what he owed the master originally. The wife was given to him. I mean, this guy, literally, all he is invested in is relationship. He's not paying for food. He's not paying for housing. All that stuff is covered by the master. Now, if he wants to leave, you're more than welcome to leave when your 7th year comes. But they have to stay. That's not saying that God is okay with divorce. Well, look at verse number 6. Then his master, now he says in verse number 5, I will not go out free. I love my family. I love my master. Then his master shall bring him unto the judges. He shall also bring him to the door or unto the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear through with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. That's true love. I mean, literally. So his master would literally take his ear, put it to the doorpost, and wham, right in there. And you say, why? I'm going to be honest, I don't know. It's just what they did. Again, we have to go back to the customs of the day. You know, you look at people today and they got these big holes in their ears. And I'm not judging them. I'm not their judge. You know, that's between them and the Lord. But, you know, why would we say this is the original gauge? You say, is gauging biblical? Apparently it is. But right, yeah. Some of them pretty wild. But anybody else with anything? All right. And again, I think we got through this next set here. But we'll hit it again. And if a man sell his daughter to be a maidservant, again, nothing outside of their culture that would be, even today, Middle Eastern people, a lot of the Arabic people, and they have arranged marriages. They will work out a contract, and this is no different than that. But you would look at this and you would think, well, man, women have no rights whatsoever. As a matter of fact, God's elevating the woman in this and actually giving her rights, giving her power. It says, and if a man sell his daughter to be a maidservant, she shall not go out as the men servants do. So she's not going to do the work that the men servants do. She'll be just like this is like a marriage setting. It's not like being an indentured servant. Verse 8, if she please not her master, who hath betrothed her to himself, then shall he let her be redeemed to sell her unto a strange nation. He shall have no power, seeing he had dealt deceitfully with her. So if the master has said, I want to marry her, and he has paid we would call it the dowry. That's how they use that was the language that they would use. It's almost like even today that, if somebody wanted to marry your daughter, they would come up and they would ask the man. It's a lot like that. I know that's not probably very common anymore, but that is generally the courteous thing, the respectful thing to do. But this guy said, okay, I want to marry her, and the authority from the father has been passed on to this guy that's paid the dowry, that's taken her in. And he said, I'm going to marry her for myself. And then he's like, you know what? Change your mind. I'm not going to marry her. I don't want to marry her. Well, okay, but you've already made the decision, and the dowry's been paid. Now, you got yourself in kind of a pickle here, bud, because you betrothed her to yourself. So if you want to, I guess divorce would be the right term to use, the right word. If you want to call it off, here's what you got to do. She's got to be either redeemed by her father, or her father can find another man, and then he can pay you to redeem her. But you cannot sell her. You have no power to sell her to a Gentile. You have no right. You have no authority over her, because this falls back on the man, seeing he hath dealt deceitfully with her. And verse 9, and if he have betrothed her unto his son, so if he paid the dowry for her to be married to his son, he shall deal with her after the manner of daughters. And we talked about that, when a father is giving, what do they say at weddings? The preacher will ask, who give this woman to be married? And so what is happening in that situation? That woman is now becoming a part, and she's not like she's cut off from her other family, but now she's becoming a part of her husband's family. And so the father-in-law would look at her as, well, she's my daughter. We say daughter-in-law, but really, she's my daughter. I would do anything for her that I would do for my daughter. And that's the language that God is using there. He shall deal with her after the manner of daughters. If he take him another wife, and again, consequences for sinful man's acts. God knows what men and women are going to do. He knows that they're gonna fall short. If he take him another wife, and this is not God saying it's okay to do this, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish. And if he do not these three unto her, then shall she go out free without money. So God says, hey, you've chosen this. And now you've chosen to get yourself another wife. So now you have two wives, and guess what, bud? You're not free from this one. You still have to do the husbandly duties. Make sure that she has food, make sure that she has raiment, clothing, make sure that she... And listen, isn't that enough money alone? The raiment part? Women love clothes, don't they? Look, guys, they're not up here. But, I mean, and he says, you have to take care of her livelihood. It's your business. This is what you asked for. And if you don't, she's free to go. There's no need for you being paid for redemption. She is just free to go, free without money. All right, anybody got anything to there? This is where it starts to get interesting. People start dying. Or they don't. It just depends. Verse number 12. He that smiteth a man so that he die shall be surely put to death. So here's the deal. If a man comes up and just, I don't know, hits somebody with a shovel, whatever happened, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't say if the guy that got hit was guilty of something. You taking the law into your own hands, and wham, bam, thank you, man. You've killed him. You are now looking at the death penalty. And here's the thing. They enforced this. This was enforced. So what do you think, just by looking at verse number 12 there, he that smiteth a man so that he die shall be surely put to death. What do you think about that? Well, I mean, rightfully so. I mean, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. That's what we always say, right? And that's taking that out of context. But you look at that and you say, well, I mean, he deserves it, right? He went up and hit a man. You don't know the whole story, but it don't matter. That is you taking matters into your... Isn't vengeance is mine, saith the Lord? Isn't that what God said? Look at verse number 13. And if a man lie not in wait, but God deliver him into his hand, then I will appoint thee a place whither he shall flee. So God's saying, look, here's the thing. What happens if it's just kind of out of your hands? That's essentially what the verse is saying. It's just, it just happened. This guy popped off at the mouth, and this guy picked up a bat. He wasn't like, it wasn't premeditated. And we're fixing to deal with premeditation in the next verse. But it wasn't premeditated. It was just, it all happened so fast, it was out of everybody's hand. You ever met somebody that just kind of has a short wick, a short fuse, and Bob's your uncle. And so what is God saying? He said, I'll give him a place to flee because how many times have we heard of people not getting a fair trial? We hear that a lot, don't we? Why would they not get a fair trial? Well, I can say this. If you look at, just say small town. Say something happened in Nancy and we had a little courthouse and everybody knows this guy. Right? John Mounts. I'll use you for instance. John Mounts and me, John got mouth poppy and man, I knocked him out. I just put him in the earth. I'm not going to do that. But everybody knows John, right? John's lived here, well, I mean, ever since you're a little kid. John's lived right here in this area, and I've not. So what is everybody going to do? They're going to pick John's side probably, right? And then guess what? When I show up at the courthouse, hang him high, right? And I can understand. But they didn't know what John said to me. It don't matter. It doesn't matter now. John's dead. So we got to get you into a place where the trial will be fair. And then later on in the Old Testament, God set up cities of refuge for people to be able to flee, to get a fair way. Just wait here until, it's kind of cooled off back there, and then you can have the trial. But, in the heat of the moment, and not a good time to have a trial, right? Especially when everybody's on the guy that's passed away side. Verse 14, but if a man come presumptuously upon his neighbor to slay him with guile. So he has premeditated this into a crafty kind of, let me give you a good instance of this. David took Bathsheba and lay with her, and then Uriah comes back. And what did David do? Premeditated this whole thing out. Let's do this. I'm going to try to get Uriah to go back and have relations with his wife. And Uriah's like, no, nobody else is out in battle. Everybody else is out in battle. I should be in battle. I'll just lay right here. And then David's like, okay, that didn't work. So plan B, right? Let's just, send him out in the heat of battle and everybody retire. And so what was he doing? It was crafty, wasn't it? Scheming. Yeah, absolutely. And listen, let me tell you something. If you don't think in your heart of hearts that you can't go lower than low, we're talking about a man that the Bible says is a man after God's own heart. And he pulled it off. At least he thought he did. And then a year goes by, and then God says, you know what, Nathan? Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go have a talk with David. A year had passed. And I don't know how much thought David had put towards what he had done, but I can tell you this, he was steaming hot at that sermon. He's like, oh, that guy, David, thou art the man. And a year had passed. But we're talking about a man after God's own heart. He said, but if a man come presumptuously upon his neighbor to slay him with guile, thou shalt take him from mine altar that he may die. Now, back in that culture, we say, I throw myself at the mercy of the court. This would kind of be like the same thing, except people would go to even pagan temples. People would go to pagan temples, and it was against the law in the cultures to take anybody from the temple. They've thrown themselves on the altar. I've talked to God and we've gotten things right. And as long as they stayed at the temple, there was nothing you could do. That was the law. There was nothing. God says, no. If he's on my altar, you take him and you kill him. He's premeditated this. Here's the thing. We do that today too. We have murder and we have manslaughter. Right? Manslaughter as well. This was just out of everybody's control. But murder, we got notebooks of him writing stuff down. Right? They're writing stuff on bullets and they're writing stuff on magazines, and it's just crazy. But that is what God's like. Look, murder and manslaughter, two different things. Two different things. If somebody has lied in wait and like, I'm going to get that guy, there's something wrong there. So what is God saying? God's saying, look, there's a difference. Okay? People say, oh, all sin is sin. And to a degree, that's right. But God looks at things differently than what we do. Because here's the thing. This is the thing about all sin is sin. That's generally who's saying that is the lost people. You're not no better than me because all sin is sin. Whoa. There's times that he called things abominations. There's times that he called things sin. There's times that he called things trespasses. There's times that he called things iniquities. So there is differences. Not all sin is sin. Now, all sin will send you to hell, but all sin is not sin. God looks at things, especially this culture today. He looks at this culture and he's like, that's an abomination. This stuff that's going on, this pride stuff, it's an abomination. But God looks at things a lot like what our court system looks at them today too. Murder, manslaughter, it's two different things. Verse 16 here, God even deals with kidnapping. And man napping, we'll say that. And he that stealeth a man and selleth him. Yes. Thank you. I even have that one highlighted in my Bible. Verse 15, we'll get to 16 after this one. Verse 15, and he that smiteth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. Let me read verse 17 with that, and then we'll hit verse 16. Verse 17, and he that curseth his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. Now, verse 15 is not saying, oh, dad and son had an argument, son punched dad, and that's not what it's talking about. When you take and you look at verses 15 and 17, and you look at that fifth one, honor thy father and thy mother, God is so in tune with generational hand-downs. And you say, God's interested in the hand-downs? Absolutely. Where are you going to learn about, where should you learn about God? It should start in the home, right? How should that home operate? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Physically,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And then at 7, it's more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when you look at both of those and you say, well, let me just say this. If you're hitting your parents, if you're hitting them, you don't honor them. Yeah, I mean, you just don't. And if you're cursing them, you don't honor them. I wish I would have never been born in this house, and I can't stand you all. And listen, God is saying, look, think about this. If we were just to see our children, if we were just to see them come to the Lord, just them, how many generations would it take before the whole world was Christian? Not very long. Not very long. Because our kids would receive salvation. Their kids would receive salvation. And it wouldn't take too long to see the whole world Christian, right? And so that's how this thing operates. That's how Judaism operated. That's how, listen, how many people were raised up so much so that they rejected Christ because they were staunch in their Judaism ways. And I think that we ought to be staunch in our Christian ways on a lot of things. There are some things that, you may look at it and say, I'm okay with that. And listen, that's not for me and you to argue about. You run your home the way you run your home. We don't spank our kids. That's what some people will say. Well, sorry, we do. But, how else are they going to learn? Listen, I'd much rather them learn by getting that backside tanned a few times than going out here and thinking and living that, well, I can just do whatever I want to and there's no consequences. God don't operate that way either. He don't operate that way either. And let me tell you something. I'd rather get my backside wore out than what God can do, because let me tell you something. He's brought chastisement down on me before, and I would take a butt busting over that any day of the week. That's no fun. And so, take it from me, I've had both. It's interesting. Some guys will get around and they'll say, let me tell you how I was whenever I was a kid. Me and you were talking about this the other day, and I was like, well, you're wow. It's just, we don't do it to gloat, but we do it to say, I learned a lot. And where do you learn it from? It starts in the home. Why are these kids not learning anything? Because when you see them out, they're on their phones. Well, the first time, yeah, you feel bad. You do. You don't want to do it. If somebody wants to do it, there's a problem there. But if somebody doesn't want to do it, there's a problem there as well. Because there has to be this balance. If I'll tell you this, man, I've dealt with some yahoos, but there was this woman. Me and my wife were dealing with, and she was a therapist, and we were dealing with a child, and they were acting just out of sorts, and the therapist said, "Well, consequences don't fix behavior sometimes." I'm like, okay, so what about when we read verses like here in just a minute about how a master hits one of his servants and they lose their eye or they lose their tooth, they're free to leave. That consequence is built into the action. You tell your children, hey, don't stick your hand on that hot stove. It'll burn your hand. And they do it anyways. Well, you don't have to bust their butt. They learn their lesson by getting their hands scalded, right? So there's always going to be actions or consequences to our actions. They may not be immediate. They may be on down the road. I guarantee you, if we were to talk to Ahab and say, Ahab, let me ask you something. Elijah come up to you and said it's not going to rain for 3.5 years. Did you believe him? No, not at first, because it wasn't immediate. The sun's out. It would have took who knows how long. The ground starts cracking. Okay, all right. We've been here before. We've seen this happen. It'll be all right. The rain will come. Yeah, in 3.5 years. And that's just the way that it is. Brother John, I know that you got a story that you could tell us about riding a bike on a and having stripe up your back, or was it your brother? Who's? Yeah. And that was your aunt that done that, correct? Yeah.
It was mother.
Right.
She was my mother, and then was my brother.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because they can. Because they can. If you have kids, you're handcuffed already. You can only do certain things. Those are your kids. I'm not an advocate for beating them, but I will say this: they need a butt busting every now and again. They need to show what is right and what is wrong. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Back in the day, mom and dad were therapists. And they taught you what was right and what was wrong. I remember talking to my buddy, he lives down in Monticello. He said, I can remember, he said, when my dad said my name one time, he said, I listened. And he said, I had to learn that. But he said, where we worked on a farm, he said your name. He said it could have been a bale of hay that was coming out of the barn and it was going to fall on you. He said it could have been anything. You may have been getting kicked by a donkey. He said it just is what it is. But I mean, you look at kids now, and listen, I love kids, I do, but man, they've got it tough. They do. Because not only do they have to deal with listening to kids at school. Oh, my house don't operate like that, so your house shouldn't operate like that. I've had to deal with that, and I've had to tell some other kids, hey, you don't live here. But if you did, I promise you, it'd operate just the way it does right now if you lived here too. We better go. 8 minutes. All right. I did 15. and 17. Can we hit 16? Are we clear? The runway is clear. And he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. Listen, I am in a total agreement with that. These people that are stealing these kids and taking people, I think we ought to just go ahead and hang them high. Hang them up. Listen, and here's the thing. This is not God is like, man, God's bloodthirsty. That's not what this is teaching. God's teaching, hey, there are consequences to your actions. And if you enforce the death penalty, guess what? Your crime rate's going to come way down. Come way down. You don't believe me? What's that guy that's running the prison over there in Salvador? El Salvador? Is that him? Let me tell you, they're like, or maybe it's Venezuela. I can't remember. But they're like, wow, crime is like at the bottom. And that was like one of the worst countries. Kidnappings all the time. And this guy comes in and he says, we're not going to have it no more. Anybody that's involved in a gang and has done crime, I mean, it's crazy. And the lights stay on in this place for 24 hours a day. They get 1 hour of just movement outside of their cells. But their cells are huge, and it's just steel beds stacked on top of each other. They have no blankets, they have no pillows, they have no mattresses. You have made your bed, now lie in it. And he's teaching them. But verse 18, and if men strive together, and one smite another with a stone or with his fist, and he die not, but keepeth his bed, so if he gets laid up, they get into this argument, and he gets laid up. If he rise again and walk abroad upon his staff, then shall he that smote him be quit or acquitted, innocent. Only he shall pay for the loss of his time, and shall cause him to be thoroughly healed. Now, here's the thing what that doesn't say. Because in our heart of hearts is, well, I didn't start the fight. Don't matter. It don't matter. You're the one who picked the stone up. You're the one who busted him in the side of the head. You laid him up. Guess what? Now you got to pay for his wages lost, and you got to pay for him to fully heal. Oh, I didn't do anything wrong. Yes, you got into a fight. You got into a fight. This would curb a lot of that small man syndrome. I got to fight everybody in the county, but that is what God is. His intention is, hey, listen, you better check your anger. You better chill out. Verse 20. If a man smite his servant or his maid with a rod, and he die under his hand, he shall be surely punished. Notwithstanding, if he continue a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his money, or he is his property. He owned him. Well, guess what? He lived a couple days. The consequence is built into the action. You lost. You've lost your money, and you're not getting it back. Here's the thing. These are laws for servants too. It's like, it's undergirding the servant. It's undergirding children. It's undergirding, even guilty people. It's kind of undergirding some of them. Just like that last one that we read. Hey, even if you're guilty, if you get laid up, and you don't die, but you get laid up in the bed, things are going to be all right. Verse 22, if men strive and hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit depart from her, and yet no mischief follow, he shall surely be punished. He shall be surely punished, according as the woman's husband will lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. So God is pro-life. If there is a scuffle that takes place and there is a pregnant woman, listen, what is God doing? God's answering all the what ifs. Because that's what we love to do. Well, what if this was, and God says, I already got a law for that. I already got a judgment for that. So this woman's pregnant, and the stress or whatever takes place in between these two guys fighting, she ends up having the baby. She goes into like a premature labor. The man, her husband, can literally say, this is what I want done. They take it to the judges, and the judges handle the situation. So again, whether they're born or not, God looks at it and says, that's a child. That's a child. And they're important to me. Verse 23, and if any mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life. So if he dies, the child dies. Now here we go. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. So God says, if any of this stuff happens, we call it good. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, wound for a wound. And if a man smite the eye of his servant or the eye of his maid, that it perish, he shall let him go free for his eye's sake. I heard this, and it's about the verses 22 through 25. This is so interesting to me. You know where the most dangerous place in America is? If you were to think about it, like long and hard, we would think of probably a rough city, right? That's a dangerous place, America. You know the womb? A mother's womb is the most dangerous place for a child. 1 in 3 births, 1 in 3 children that are in the womb are taken by abortion. 1 in 3. That's like 33.335%. 1 in 3. That's the most dangerous place in America. Ain't that sad? Verse 26, if a man smite the eye of his servant or the eye of his maid, that it perish, he shall let him go free for his eye's sake. So if he loses his eye, maybe he's given some corporal punishment because that was suitable for back in that day. But the servant got a little out of control. You stole from me, Onesimus. That kind of situation. He says if you get his eye or her eye, then and it destroys the eye, he shall let him go free for his eye's sake. And if he smite out his manservant's tooth or his maidservant's tooth, he shall let him go free for his tooth's sake. If an ox, now here we go. This is interesting. If an ox gore a man or a woman, let's put it in today's kind of situation. If your dog was to bite somebody. Let's just use it like that, because most everybody in here don't have ox, cattle, except for John. Anybody else got cattle? Okay, so John would be the one to really get this. But but if they, John, work with me. Stop doing all that. So let's say that it says, if an ox gore a man or a woman that they die, then the ox shall surely be stoned. Why? Because it could happen again. And then he goes on to explain that. The what if? Well, and his flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be acquitted. So an ox kills a man, horns a man or a woman, they die from it, and now the law says the owner of the ox, you're not allowed to profit off that animal. It was your animal, your fault. That's it. You just kill the ox and you don't even eat it. You don't even eat it. But you're free to go. Verse 29, but if the ox were wont to push with his horn in time past, so if he's had this history of being an aggressive animal, and it hath been testified to his owner, and he hath not kept him in, but that he hath killed a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and his owner also shall be put to death. Here's the thing. You say, man, that is insane. That is insane. I mean, really? For an ox? Like, think about it. Here's the thing. Knowledge, you are held at a higher standard with the knowledge that you possess. You are. You are. What was that parable? If a servant knoweth his Lord's will, right? Even James goes into that a few times. I think it's James chapter number 3. Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, James chapter 3 and verse 1, my brethren, be not many masters, not many teachers, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. So what you know, these people were wanting to be teachers, and James says, guys, hey, listen, this is not like a hobby to get into. This is not a thing to get into. And listen, because what you know, you'll have the greater condemnation. The judgment will be heavier on you. So what is God saying? You have a knowledge, you have a brain, use it, right? Because the ox has tried to do this before. So, now we're going to stone the ox and we're going to stone the owner if, verse 30, if there be laid on him a sum of money, then he shall give for the ransom of his life whatsoever is laid upon him. So if the family of the person that passed away, let's say that that person was the breadwinner. Let's say that he was the only one that worked in the family, and just say it was the dad of the home. And they was like, well, we're not going to benefit from this guy being stoned to death. So I'll tell you what, you give us X amount of dollars and, we'll call it good. And so he could pay his way out. Maybe that's where the Catholics get, you can pay your way out of death. but that's what they say. You can do this. It would probably, in that day, it would probably value a lot of people to go that route, because a lot of people were poor, very poor. Verse 31, whether he have gored a son or have gored a daughter, according to this judgment shall it be done unto him. So it doesn't matter what the age. God's saying it doesn't matter. You say, why would God have to say that? Well, I don't know. Why would Paul have to tell Timothy, hey, don't let elder people run you down for your age? I know I'm not, that's like the NIV version of it, but he's saying don't let older people run you down because of how old you are, because that happens. Or it's not always age. It could be this guy knows more than this person. And they're trying to teach this person, but they're being a real jerk about it. They're being a smart aleck. It happens that way too. Here's the thing. God says it doesn't matter what the age is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're 80. It doesn't matter if they're 8. They're still valuable in my eyes. Look at verse number 32. If you just come in here, we're in Exodus chapter number 21. I want you to look at this verse with us. Go to verse number 32. Exodus chapter 21. Exodus 21 and verse 32. We'll make this applicable for everybody. Everybody there? Okay. Exodus 21 verse 32. If you're not there, just listen. If the ox shall push a manservant or a maidservant. So, we're talking, so in that day, servants were, it wouldn't matter if it was a child or a servant of the home. If somebody was to walk in and there was not a servant present, a child would wash their feet. That was the just the culture of that day. It would be like washing their hands. That's just what they did. Oh, come in and take your shoes off and let's wash them feet. How fun would that be, right? So God says, Here's the thing. I see no difference in man, woman, boy, child, servant, whatever gender they are. Okay? If an ox shall push a man, kill them, he shall give unto their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. You say, why in the world did you have us open our Bibles? Thought it was time to go. Well, who was sold for 30 pieces of silver? Jesus. So Judas sells Jesus for the price of a dead servant. Next time you think that, man, Judas really banked it. He didn't. It's like, this is a servant. Verse 33, and if a man shall open a pit, I don't know what this guy's doing, okay? I'm just going to tell you, I don't know if this guy's like trying to dig a well or if he's digging a trench. Maybe he's running some Ethernet wire or whatever the case may be. This guy, he's digging a pit. Or if a man shall dig a pit and not cover it, and an ox or an ass fall therein, or a donkey. So, what is God saying? Pay attention to what you're doing. You're digging a big hole in the ground. Yeah, exactly. Just pay attention to what you're doing. I mean, wouldn't you just love to somebody just digging a hole? Maybe this guy just likes to dig holes. I don't know. Wasn't there was a movie on Disney called Holes, wasn't there, a long time ago? They were just having these kids out there digging holes. I don't know. Maybe he's talking about those people. And they say, hey, you didn't cover the pit, the hole, back up. And now my ox or my donkey is, well, guess what? It's down in the pit. Probably dead. Verse 34, the owner of the pit shall make it good and give money unto the owner of them, and the dead beast shall be his. So the owner of the pit has to pay and give money unto the owner of them, and the dead beast shall be his. So now he can take that beast, he can cook it, and he can feed his family, but he had to pay for it. Could you imagine? I was just digging a hole. Look at these hands. Use my shovel. Blisters. Yeah. You know what I do? I cook that thing in the ground. All right, verse 35. And if one man's ox hurt another's that he died, then they shall sell the live ox and divide the money of it, and the dead ox also they shall divide. Or if it be known that the ox hath used to push in time past, and his owner hath not kept him in, he shall surely pay ox for ox, and the dead shall be his own. So listen. Ox on ox abuse is not good, okay? God's saying, look, don't come in here with this bunch of what ifs. Seriously, who would think that far ahead? God would. Why? Because, you know why? Because even people today, I'm going to sue them. I'm going to sue them. Over what? I spilled coffee on myself. It was hot. Did you order hot coffee or cold coffee? Yeah, amen. Hey, listen, I like both. I don't like the middle, the lukewarm stuff. But I'll take it iced. I'll take it hot. But listen, if I take it hot, I know it's hot. It's not McDonald's fault if I spill that all over myself. Unless they just didn't put the lid on like they're really good about not doing. But God knows. He's like, look, guys, you all are ready to always. Moses, from sun up to sundown, was staying there constantly. Why? Because people are people. If I can get over on them and I can sue them, or if I can get this out of that problem that we had, this dispute, my land goes to the fence. No, it don't. It goes to the telephone pole. Listen, how many times, could you imagine being a judge? Could you imagine being Moses? Because he was dealing with probably a couple million people's differences all the time. I bet Moses wanted to stone everybody. You know what, God? Let's just say if they have a problem at all, we're just going to stone both of them and call it good. Can you imagine that? Amen. Brother Joe, if you would.